Thank you, and let me add my welcome to the Computer History Museum. We're thrilled to have you all here this evening. You know, Charles has quite a long biography, and you have a bit of it at your seat, so I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I thought what I would do is summarize what I saw as the many faces of Charles Simonyi. He is an immigrant, born in Hungary, lived in Copenhagen, educated here at Berkeley and Stanford. I understand from a friend that he later created a structured naming convention for variables, so it was called the Hungarian notation. Thought that was fun. He is a researcher. He worked at PARC for many years. He is an inventor. He created Bravo, the first WYSIWYG text editor. He's a technologist. He was an architect of many of the Microsoft's products. He's an executive. He managed some of the Microsoft groups like Word and Excel, little products like that. He's an entrepreneur. He founded the Intentional Software Corporation. I like that name. He's a philanthropist, has the Charles Simonyi Fund for Arts and Sciences and many other interests. He's also a pilot. He has licenses in both jets and helicopters. I think he's a webmaster. You should take a look at charlesandspace.com for a really beautiful website. He's an educator, and I think you see clearly on the site how much it reaches out to kids to get them excited about space. It's a wonderful job. And most of all, the reason we're here tonight and what we're here to hear about tonight is that he is also an adventurer, a modern-day Christopher Columbus, a space traveler. So we're honored to have him with us. Please join me in welcoming Charles Simonyi.
Well, I think that my flight is just a small step. I'd really like to involve kids in space sciences. I always thought that training was a very important part of the total experience.
Good day from the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Kololyov outside Moscow. This is live coverage of the launch of the Expedition 15 crew and spaceflight participant Charles Simonyi to the International Space Station. A Russian Soyuz rocket stands ready to blast off at 12:31 p.m. Central Time. And liftoff of the Soyuz rocket transporting new residents to the International Space Station. Docking confirmed a perfect arrival for new residents to the International Space Station and an American businessman.
When we arrive, we simply open the hatch and we float out of the spacecraft into the space station.
This is Charles Simonyi, and we just arrived, and I am just blown away.
Yes, Charles, I see you on the video monitor, and congratulations on a dream come true. Welcome to ISS.
This is an illustration of the advantages of weightlessness. The easiest way to get around is by flying. Use both of your hands and you can fly very straight.
Thank you very much for the hospitality. I enjoyed working here and working with the excellent crew and commander. It's a bittersweet moment for all of us. We are very sad leaving the station.
The transfer hatch is
Successful landing of the Soyuz TMA-9 spacecraft containing Mikhail Turin, Mike Lopez Alegria, and Charles Simonyi on the steppes of Kazakhstan.
Good to be back. Good to be back on Earth. Fantastic.
Thank you.
we are here, of course, to talk about orbital spaceflight, and orbital spaceflight is still a very rare event. It's a privilege to take part in one, and I think with this privilege comes an obligation to share the experience with people, and I'm just very happy to undertake that obligation. And I think that people are interested in the story of tourists because as spaceflight participants are called, some spaceflight participants don't like the term tourist, but I don't mind it. I think it's an accurate description of what we are doing, and I think it's a very positive thing. And people relate to tourism because I think that the tourists are more like than a member of the public. The incentive for the organizations, well, at least for the Russian Space Agency, whose guest I was, is to make us fly, make the tourists fly. Whereas the incentive for the same organization is to cut out the astronauts, except for the very, very best, and the people with the right stuff. So people are naturally interested in how low can it go? What's the lowest limit? And how weak and sick you can be, and we certainly tested those limits. Of course, they're not going to do anything that is dangerous, and especially they're not going to do anything that endangers the crew and the station. So in that sense, it's a very interesting test. I was 14 days in space, signed up for 12, but it became 14, which is wonderful, 2 extra days. You take a 90-minute orbit around the Earth, so everything is going 16 times more, and you got to travel this many miles. This is the contents of my talk. I don't know if you're going to spend too much time in why fly in space. It's kind of a philosophy, and it takes a fair amount of time. If you are interested in it, ask in the Q&A, and when you ask it, it gives me a permission to talk about it. I really don't have a better idea of why fly humans in space than any of you. But I can tell you how such an enterprise starts. People always ask, how do you start going to space? And of course, the process of training, it was 8 months, and I think it's a very important part. It's a major part of the experience. In fact, that was about the only part that was guaranteed. I was guaranteed to be trained. There was no guarantee that I would fly. So then the flight itself, and let's spend a lot of time on Q&A, which is really the most interesting part. Let's skip the brief history of human spaceflight, except for in 2000 is significant because the ISS or the International Space Station was occupied in November of 2000, and since then we had continuous human presence in space. And I think it's an important milestone that is not as much appreciated than the previous important milestones. Of course, and in 2002, this guy, Eric Anderson, had the brilliant idea of going to the Russian Space Agency that was starved for cash a little bit, and brought forward the idea that they might want to sell seats to him, and he's going to market those seats, and he will be able to market it successfully. And nobody believed it at the time, and NASA was pretty much against it. But after a very exciting history, and Dennis Tito was the first to fly as a spaceflight participant, and NASA, for example, realized that it's a great way to send money to Russia without the difficulties of all kinds of legislations that made the transfers difficult. Why fly humans in space? And I'm not going to talk about it. I listed a lot of reasons here, practically all the reasons that I've heard. I put a question mark after those that I don't think are easily justified, and no question marks mean that I think I could justify it with some effort. certainly tourism, I think I can justify it. And from my selfish point of view, why should I fly? Certainly I support space, just like many of you do, and I'm very excited about space. And it is a support. It's an infusion of liquidity into the Russian space program, which turns out to be very critical for the operation of the International Space Station. For example, the lifeboat on the space station is a Russian Soyuz, and that's the only lifeboat there is. And you will see that every American or international astronaut that is flying ESA or JAXA, European or Japanese space organization astronaut that flies on the International Space Station has to take essentially a part of the training, at least the return part. They don't have to fly up, or some of them do fly up on the Soyuz, some of them do fly up on the space shuttle, but they have to be prepared to come down in the lifeboat. So they have to have the training and the equipment, the personal equipment to fly on the Soyuz. And then, of course, you get an incredible health checkup, and you know, at the age 50, you're supposed to have this checkup, and I never had it, and so this was a great excuse to get it over with and find out when I'm going to die, and it turned out that I wasn't prepared for it, but I was healthy enough. So, and of course, to learn new things. I love to learn the details of things that you don't find in books, and so I'd be happy to share those parts that you don't find in books. This is me in 1963. I won a TV competition in Hungary, and I was the Hungary's junior astronaut, and I was sent to Moscow to meet meet the other winners from the other satellite countries that convened in Moscow, and we met the then big star Pavel Popovich, who gave me this postcard signed by himself, and we'll return to this later on. There's a stamp on it. That's the stamp of the International Space Station. So I took the postcard that I got from Pavel Popovich at that time to the space station. So that's a kind of an early interest. I mean, everybody has interest in space. Never would have dreamt that, not that I would have flown in space, but that the possibility of a civilian flying in space would ever arise. So everybody asks, how does one start such an enterprise? And I started as a tourist, as a regular tourist, going to Baikonur to see a launch of a Russian launch. And these are organized tours. It's not inexpensive, but it's affordable. Space Adventures organizes it. It's kind of a politically difficult trip. You have to go to Moscow, and Baikonur is in Kazakhstan, which now it's an independent state, but there's a Russian base, and so on and so forth. So you go there, and this is a picture that I took of the, and what I just want to emphasize here, there's you can see a poster there. It's a Dutch, one of the cosmonauts is a Dutch astronaut that is flown under the aegis of ESA, the European Space Agency. I think he's the tall one. But we were this close to what was going on, and this is an important ceremony. It's the declaration of readiness by the crew to the space, to the state commission. And this is the chairman of the state commission and the state commission in charge of spaceflight and so on. And the crew, the commander says that "My gotovi," we are ready for the flight. Na polieti gotovi. So, and there are painted marks on the parade grounds, right in front of where they dress and where they stood, for the last 20 or 30 years. There's just a lot of tradition. Now this is a terrible picture, but let me explain. I want you to focus on the snow on the right. It looks like snow, doesn't it? Well, while the crew got dressed, we were partying around the rocket. And that is the missile that is going to be launched in about 2 hours. and the tourists are partying around it, and obviously it's fully fueled because the snow indicates the liquid oxygen in the tanks. And I'm about 10 feet from this with my little camera taking pictures. I don't believe what I'm doing. I'm standing on the same pad that Gagarin, it's called Gagarinsky start. It's Gagarin launched from the same pad. Obviously, replaced some of the tower equipment, but it's essentially the same thing. Certainly, they didn't replace the concrete that is crumbling under your feet. So, so that's it. And this is about 10 seconds before start, and this one was, we were in an illegal place that Space Adventures arranged for me, because Space Adventures decided that they want me their next client. So anyway, they said, do you want to be very close? I said, sure. And so they got me this close to the rocket. This is, of course, a telephoto lens, but we weren't further than about 350 feet. Very, very dangerous position in the sense that if the thing blows up, we would be, we would be incinerated. But the thing is not going to blow up. It hasn't blown up in the last 40 years. So this is the launch. I was there twice, so this one is a little bit further away. My legs were shaking from the excitement. You know, this is unbearable excitement and noise and everything that you've heard. So they told me that maybe I should fly, and I thought that was a crazy idea. And then I had the privilege of meeting Neil Armstrong in Seattle, and spent a little time with him. He was at the Museum of Flight in just an institution just like this one, and I asked him what would he do? You know, what would Neil do? And he said, go for it. So I took that as a suggestion, and I started to go through the motions. I didn't sign up. I wanted to see whether I can do it. And of course, when you sign up, you have a fair amount of money in it, and you better be sure that you can do it. So let's do the difficult things. For example, acceleration. Can I take the acceleration? This is a very old centrifuge that it's in Farnborough, England, and that's one of the things that you missed on the movie earlier. But as I was spinning there with my face a little bit distorted, and the interesting thing about this centrifuge is that, of course, in a centrifuge you have to get all those signals from the subject out to the measurement units, right? Through this rotating hub. How do you do it? Well, the British, this was built in 1959, and they don't have too much money, and they are very practical people. So they put the experimental station, the doctor, in the middle of the centrifuge. You see his station there, his chair and the terminal. So the doctor is sitting in the middle of the centrifuge and turns with it. How can you stand this? Of course, you don't have any acceleration, but you must get a little bit dizzy or something. So anyway, I think it's great engineering. So I was able to do it. Then I went and the doctors let the doctors do their things. They're not poking out my eye. It's a microphone listening to the blood vessels in the head. I mean, I saw 50 doctors. So it was pretty thorough. And here they are making sure that I can still see after that. And this is the commission of the doctors that, after all that, and I described it to excruciating detail in the blog, told me that they would recommend me for special training, they call it. So at that time, this is a commission meeting called GMK, the State Medical Commission. And there were a lot of other people there, new Russian Air Force candidates, and candidates from, for example, from Malaysia. Malaysia was the government. If individuals can buy these seats, then governments can, of course. So Malaysia bought a seat, and actually they flew their first astronaut, that essentially a civilian, not a professional astronaut, but for prestige purposes. And Korea will fly next. In April, Mr. Ko will be flying, and I trained very briefly with him because Korea also bought a ticket. So I'm sitting there, and this is Eric Anderson, whose brilliant idea was the space tourism. And he told me that look, you better fly now, or we don't know when. So this is the time to fly, even though that's not what we kind of discussed and agreed on. So I had a few minutes to say yay or nay, and remembering Mr. Armstrong, I said yes. And there are no guarantees. At the same time, I met two other, well, I met Mr. Daisuke, the Japanese tourist. You may or may not have heard of him. He was disqualified for medical reasons. And instead of him, Anusha Ansari was the fourth tourist, and she flew just before me. She was the backup for Daisuke Enomoto. So there were at that time, Daisuke was the primary candidate. So the training, 8 months in this place it's called Star City. It's a closed. It's a military base with lots of barbed wire. It's much more open, but still run by the military and run very well. Spent there 8 months. It's a little bit like being in a monastery. Just you tell everybody to cancel all your commitments and appointments and just focus on one thing. It's actually quite pleasant. There was Russian language training, which I thought was a lot of fun and very useful to be able to follow the action, to be able to read the checklist, to see the instruments, and really be even though the crew, of course, spoke pretty good English, I think it was quite important that I can do it well. Also, the official language on the space station is English. The official language on the Soyuz is Russian. Of course, physical training and a lot of theory and simulations. This is a picture of Star City. It's a kind of Soviet 60s campus, if you will. My Russian studies, I studied Russian as a child in Hungary, so I have a fairly nice handwriting, actually nicer, it's kind of a childish handwriting that I haven't used since. And I am able to read, and I was able to read and write. My vocabulary was practically nil, and so we learned a lot. I'm wearing a scarf because, of course, the classroom is not heated. So, or at least it's minimally heated, so that's why I'm wearing the scarf. Of course, training, this is Slava, my trainer. It was done very scientifically. Mostly we were swimming, because in swimming you cannot be injured. So that's this is a classroom scene. We are discussing the parachute system and the details of the parachute system. There's the instructor, and they have given this course, hundreds of times, because that many people flew, again, including all the American and international astronauts that stayed on the space station, a translator. And toward the end of my 8 months, I was able to follow it without a translator, or I told the translator what I thought I've heard, and he said yes, yeah or nay. But take a look at the teaching aids. I think that they are actually quite effective. They are very precise description. In this case, the KCP system, it's the system of it's called a system of rescue aids in English. but it includes the parachute system and all those. It's essentially the reentry system and its operation, its timeline operation, described to a great detail. And then the two parachutes, the primary and the secondary, and how they operate. And that was discussed they love theory, and I love theory. So I guess we were very happy about it. This is the life support system, and we saw the DISCI unit, which, by the way, is display and keyboard. But and the computer. The Soyuz does not or did not use computers. It has a few computers now, kind of in a helping capacity. But the main logic is done with discrete logic, mainly by relays. And on this diagram, for example, so this is the life support system. You see these relays and these diodes. A diode is an OR gate, and the relay is essentially an AND gate. So here you see somewhere here you can see the discrete events, and then under what condition, what they lead to. And during our exams, we could use these diagrams, and essentially, they asked us what happens at 5,000 meters. And we said, 5,000 meters, there's a signal, it's enabled by that. If this switch is on, this enabling switch is on, then we are going to depressurize the cabin and jettison the reentry shield and jettison the remaining hydrogen peroxide. So you can read it out from all this. One of the first things we did was take a body cast from a plaster body cast from which a seat liner was manufactured. The seat liner is part of your personal equipment. You sit in it with your knees way up. So that's the correct position. You see, that's my knee here, and the seat liner will protect you at the moment of the final impact into the ground, which is quite substantial. So for example, when you change spacecrafts, and the space station had to change spacecrafts, you take your spacesuit and you take your seat liner with you. And the moment the seat liner goes to the other spacecraft, in an emergency now you have to report to the other spacecraft and not the first one. Together with that, the other important piece of personal equipment is the spacesuit. And this is the first time I ever was going to try on a spacesuit. It's a very interesting piece of equipment. There's an umbilical opening, if you will, in your belly, and you step into it through that opening. And the opening is still around my neck. The neck ring is right now over here in my back. You can barely see it. But the next movement will be to take the neck ring and pull it over my head, and so my head sticks out, and then all this rubber stuff, umbilical, will be hanging in front of me. Then you make a nice sausage out of it, and you secure it with 2 rubber bands. So who knows why it's 2 rubber bands? In case one of them would fail, then you have the other one. So these are surgical rubber, but I'm both a little bit kidding, but also not kidding. It's nothing more than a rubber band. It's made of surgical rubber. It's a little bit stronger than what's used for in the whatever mailing. And you take it and you wrap it. You can stretch it a little bit. You wrap it 5 times, and then you put it on the sausage, and then you take one more. You wrap it 5 times, put it on a sausage. And you take the whole sausage and you put it inside the outer garment, and then you zip the outer garment up. So the outer garment is not leak-proof. It's just protecting this bladder inside that is really providing the pressure integrity. So, well, now we exercise in serious big centrifuges. This is a centrifuge at an 18-meter arm. So this is not the 1959 British centrifuge. This is the 1970 Soviet centrifuge, the world's biggest, of course. CF-18. It was made in Sweden, but So here we go up to, we did a couple of practices. Some year we went up to 7 Gs to make sure that emergency conditions wouldn't be too bad. But this was a practice for a normal condition where the acceleration kind of starts at 1.5. It slowly grows to about 3.5. Then it drops as the stage drop. The first stage drops and then continues. So it's kind of a sawtooth pattern like this with 3 teeth, being 3 stages. And after 8 minutes, the centrifuge stopped, the acceleration stopped, and the intercom, the instructor said, "Welcome, Charles, to orbit." And that's why I realized this is getting serious, you know. And I could feel that it's just 8 minutes of that acceleration, and that gets you into orbit. It doesn't take much. This is interesting. This is an exercise. It's called KUK, or Cook, rather, in Russian. And it trains you for weightlessness, or rather it trains you to avoid space sickness. There's a thing called Space Adaptation Syndrome, SAS. 50% of the people get quite ill, and people don't talk about it much for the first 2 days for long duration weightlessness. And you don't get that from a 15-second weightless parabola, but when you get a long and a permanent weightlessness, many people get sick. And there are many explanations, and nobody knows the answer. The NASA doesn't believe in it, except that people do get sick, and they get Phenagran, which is they get Fendex, which is a mixture of an upper and a downer, and you can get it as a suppository. But anyway, the Russians believe in training for it, and this is the Cook, is the training method. And you can try it at your office. You go into a rotating office chair and have your colleague turn you at a speed about this fast. Okay, it doesn't have to be faster than that. The idea is not the turning. That's just the beginning, okay? So you turn at a normal speed. You close your eyes. Then you move your head back and forth. And that gets us the K in a Cook. Its K is Coriolis, at least in Russian. And so it's a Coriolis acceleration because of the rotating movement and the back and forth movement. The otolith organ in your ear gives you completely false signals, and you will feel that you are out of control and you are flying all over the place, and you get very, very nervous. You start clutching the chair because you feel that you're going to definitely fly off violently, and start sweating and feel very, very bad. So the day before launch, I did this for 30 minutes without any ill effects. So the idea wasn't for us to get sick. The idea was to extend the time during which you still feel well. And I didn't get sick in space, and I didn't take any Fendex. So that it worked. I don't know. We were trained for survival. And this is part of our survival equipment, a machete, which also the butt of a gun. And the gun is right in front of me. It's illegal every 50 states. It has a sawed-off shotgun with 2 barrels, plus a 3rd barrel with a rifled barrel. Now, why do they teach us survival? It's because in the Russian program, there's no such thing as emergency landing. There is only unscheduled landing. And the engineers say that if there's an unscheduled landing means just that we're going to land you in safety, but we don't know where. So once you land safely, you are alive, and now it's your job to survive in case of, that's when the emergencies start. Then you declare an emergency, and you have to survive for 2 days, because 2 days is the longest that we think we will get you. I mean, we have to go to the embassy or something and clear all the papers or whatever. Anyway, could be up to 2 days. So the good news is that we don't have to eat snakes, because we have enough chocolate for 2 days. But the bad news is that we have to survive we'll see the survival training. You know, we did a survival training for 2 days in the Russian winter in the woods. So this is a simulator, and we'll see this again. Yeah. You saw how simple the spacecraft is. Of course, flying the parabolas, the weightless parabolas, is pretty important. They use a wide-bodied aircraft. This is really the biggest aircraft that is used for the weightless parabola training. And here, what we are practicing is passing mass, great mass, in this case 100 pounds. The 50 means 50 kilos, 50 kilo weight to the instructor. That was the task. And you get used to the idea that even though, the physics idea that something is weightless, it still has inertia. And so we really have to work at it, and the greater the mass, the greater the inertia. Notice, of course, that my foot is hooked into some retaining strap. Otherwise, there would be no way that you could perform the task. On the background, somebody else is having fun. And again, this was part of the movie which you may not have seen. We were also supposed to don a spacesuit. It was the wrong size spacesuit. My personal spacesuit we didn't use, only for one test in the chamber and for the flight itself. So it was kind of a luck of the draw of what spacesuit you got, and it's either fit or it didn't. This one didn't. I had a terrible problem. Here, we were trying out space food. Now, space food came a long way from the tube, the baby food in the tubes. And this is the form of the space food. It comes in cans. It's actually very tasty. And we had the chance of tasting every one, and then wrote a little list here and graded it. And our kit was packed with the stuff, more or less, that we liked. Hopefully. But it comes in a can. The can goes into the heater, and then you open it. They have completely different tastes. I mean, it's good food, but you notice that they all have the same consistency, and this is so that it sticks to the spoon. You actually eat with a spoon or a fork. Really doesn't make any difference. It sticks to it, and then you can lift it to your mouth, and everything works properly. If you lose it on the way, it's not a big deal. You will never reattach it to the spoon. You can't chase it with the spoon. It's better if it floats, and then you catch it with your mouth. So that's how you eat. That's the dessert. It's Alain Ducasse. This one is a special meal. You see, it's a special can. It's made by Alain Ducasse and Apple Fondant. I'm making the notes. This is the international crew that is having fun at Star City. There are no women astronauts in this picture, even though there were several women on the same schedule. But just to give you an idea, there's a Russian, Belgian, American, Malaysian, Japanese, myself, and another American around this table. We do this every week or so. We get together. It's called the American Cottage, and it's having a nice dinner. These are the two Malaysians. The one on the right, Sheikh Muzaffar, flew last November. He came down on the spacecraft that I went up on, and something went wrong on that spacecraft, and they did a backup. It's called the ballistic reentry that they had. So he got 7 Gs that I practiced, but I didn't get, instead of the 4 Gs. And just a couple of days ago, I read in Aviation Week that they found a problem, and there was a missing wire somewhere, a broken wire behind the panel, and that's what caused that backup reentry. There's one more. There's the ballistic reentry, and there's reserve ballistic reentry that nobody has ever done. But it's interesting. I've been talking about how everything is working 100% of the time, but apparently the spacecraft that I flew on I flew up on, when it came down, it had a problem. This is taking an exam. The professor is sitting there, and this is an exam in toilet, how to use the toilet. And This is the toilet on the space station, and I'm preparing it for for the next customer. We will see it on the station. This is the container where the solid waste is accumulating until it's full, at which point the whole unit is replaced. And then the container will be deorbited in the next spacecraft that is coming down in the living compartment and burnt up in the atmosphere. And this is the toilet in the Soyuz. This is the smaller toilet, so we're not going to go into that. This is the first time I saw my spacecraft number 220 in November of 06. One day we got to go over to the factory, and there it was. Good old number 220. There are some service equipment here. This is the return capsule, and then the living compartment, return capsule, and the living compartment on the top. It was an amazing sight. This is me and my crewmates, Oleg Kotov and Fyodor Yorchikin, in the return capsule, photographed from the top, from the living compartment. But this is the position that we occupy during launch, reentry, and docking, the dynamic operations. We would be wearing our spacesuit, so it would be even more crowded than it is here. As you see, there's very, very little room, even though the living compartment really makes it quite livable during the 2 days of the rendezvous. This is the control panel. It's a quite new control panel. It's one of the things that they improved or replaced in the Soyuz in the last 40 years. It works exactly like the previous one. They have a plasma display. Before they had an array of buttons, and now they have a plasma display that displays an array of buttons. So the same buttons. And then you simply move the cursor. This says cursor, and you move the cursor to the right button, and then you push it. So the software is exactly the same, and it's emulated. There's a 386 that drives this unit, and they would be using the old chip because it's more resistant to radiation. The newer chips are quite can be hurt by the radiation in space. So of course you prefer to use the older chips. This is the beginning of the survival training. Of course, I didn't train with my normal crew, so because they have already done it. So I trained with the 2 Russian rookies, and we are ready to be packed into we have to don this spacesuit, and we're going to be put into the spacecraft in the woods, and then we have to start surviving from then on. This is just the moment it was raining and snowing, so we were wearing these overcoats just to protect the spacesuit. We're going to get into the spacecraft on the right, and the parachute is very, very important because it's part of the survival equipment. So we are pretending the spacecraft just landed here, and here's our parachute, and we will have to change into our survival suit inside the spacecraft. It's a very difficult. You saw how little space there was. And to take off this really difficult contortion to take off the spacesuit on the top of each other. The spacecraft is also on the side, so we're not sitting in a correct position, but kind of stacked on the top of each other. Turned out that our commander couldn't do it, so he got out against the rules in his spacesuit from the spacecraft and had to change outside. But then we built this wonderful teepee, and I say that this is the most beautiful teepee, and this is just with that one machete and one pocket knife and 10,000 square feet of nylon. But we knew how to do that. I mean, there's a method to this, and I know that from now on, if anywhere I'm on the Earth between 57 latitude south and north, because it doesn't go further than that. And if I have 10,000 square feet of nylon and the survival equipment of a Soyuz spacecraft, I can survive for 2 days. Here we are preparing our beds, and it's called lapnik. It's we cut it from the trees, and we had to create signal fires on command. And after 2 days, we look quite rugged and signaling that we are done. This is the kind of the undergarments that we will have to wear. When you come down, when you go up, the problem is that your blood goes into your head. When you come down, the problem is that now you got used to that one, and now when you come down, the blood is going into your legs, and this prevents that. This is the trial of the real spacesuit. I spent 2 hours at that position at 30,000 meters. It's 100,000 feet, simulated altitude, basically complete vacuum, and all you are protected is, they do it so that you feel confident about the spacesuit. It will protect you for exactly 2 hours, and that is the time where you can effect an unscheduled landing. Another special exercise is fire. There is fire on the space station. We have to be able to get into the spacesuit wearing an isolating gas mask. Again, my crewmate Oleg Kotov is helping me. He's not doing the exercise because he has done it before, and furthermore, the isolating gas masks cost about $2,000, so they're too expensive to waste, and it's horrible. It uses sulfuric acid to generate oxygen, and I always thought that it was the equivalent of, you inhale those fumes, it's the equivalent of smoking, I don't know, 10 cartons of Marlboros or something. But again, you see how the spacesuit is going to go over my head. Of course, for a moment, what you have to do is take a deep breath from this sulfuric acid fumes and hold it, take the mask off, get the ring over, and then put the mask back on, and then you can then exhale again because you're supposed to be in toxic atmosphere. Horrible. This Clayton Anderson, he was up there after me, and we are training on the mock-up of the space station. We are now ready to fly, just a month to go, so my official portrait. And now we are in isolation in Baikonur, and we spend a lot of time with the head down, again, to get used to the idea of weightlessness. In normal gravity, you are in equilibrium, and in you have sufficient blood in all parts of your body. You get into weightlessness, the gravity is removed, so obviously there will be more blood pumped into your head. And you feel very full and bloated in the head, and generally it's an unpleasant sensation. You can get used to it by hanging your head down, and we were sleeping with not this steep, but at about a 5-degree angle. A couple of 2x4s were put under the bed every day, and that's how it was affected. Yeah. This is me in front of the tree that was planted by Pavel Popovich, and a couple of days before launch, visit the rocket. They do everything by a strict schedule, but in a way, everything is done calmly and in a very deliberate way. There are never any delays or delays expected, and there are no delays in reality. The spacecraft and the last stage is not yet on it, but it will. The last stage is going to go on this afternoon, and the spacecraft is going to go on tomorrow, and then a normal train, will pull the rocket, the assembled rocket, out to the launching pad where it will be erected. And here the townspeople are coming by the train, and they're standing by, they're putting pennies on the rail and have it smashed by the train, and then they use it as good luck charms. This is the traditional breakfast on the day of the launch, the low residue steak and eggs breakfast. the traditions, you sign the door, you salute to your friends, and now things get a little bit kind of a little bit more formal. The masks, again, are to make sure we were in isolation, and this is to prevent, of course, illness, but also make sure that we don't take any bugs up into the station and infect the people up there. That would be a real problem. So it was made sure that we don't, we don't have a cold, for example. Now, this is my after the declaration of readiness to the State Commission. On the background, there's the rocket. It's fully fueled. It's ready to go. We are ready to go up the elevator. Just a couple of last pictures. And what's interesting here is the people that are accompanying us. And notice that the third person is holding my arm. This is just to make sure that we don't trip or something. But these are important people. It's the head of the Russian Space Agency, Mr. Perminov. Mr. Ivanov just dropped in. He was the Putin's heir apparent, but it turns out that he lost out. But at that time, former Minister of Defense and essentially the equivalent of the Vice President. And then Mr. Sebastianov is the chief designer, the head of Energia Corporation. So these are key people of the government and the aerospace establishment, and they are just standing around, and I think that it radiates confidence to me that everything is normal and we are doing things kind of slowly and deliberately and on schedule. Now here we are on the steps up to the elevator. Fewer people are coming with us. The chief designer is standing at the bottom of the stairs, and as you take the stairs up, so he's standing right here, and as you take the stairs, he kicks you in the behind firmly with his knee. And that's also it's kind of a tradition. And you are warned about it because notice that we were a little bit stooped all the time. That's the cut of the spacesuit. The spacesuit you wear in a seat, so it's not made for walking, essentially. So you always stooped a little bit, and then you are carrying this ventilation fan in your hand. So going stooped like this, and then somebody would kick you in the behind. You could fall on your nose, especially once they are not holding your hand, which they were before. And I think those are the priceless moments of yeah. So the launch, people wonder, oh wow, that's really exciting, and it's there's the countdown, and then comes 0, and then something dramatic happens, and it's nothing like that. It's because things start to kind of change at T-10. Until then, you hear the wind, and you're kind of going side by side a little bit, and there's the noise that you hear, the noise of the ventilation fans. And then at T-10, you start hearing, things changing, motors starting to run, pumps starting to run, fluids start to go every which way. At T-5, probably something is already burning, but all you feel is vibrations. You are separated from all that amazing sight by the launch shroud that covers up the spacecraft completely, and it's a system on its own. Then the skin of the spacecraft that's inside the launch shroud. Then you are wearing your helmet, and then underneath you are wearing earphones. So basically you don't hear anything, you just hear the air rushing, and you feel the vibrations. And of course, the engines start at T-5 or something. And at 0 or so, you start feeling like you're on an elevator or maybe on a helicopter, because it's shaking and you feel rising. And it's not very dramatic. It's quite calm. The accelerations are a little bit like a first gear in a sports car. Of course, they will keep on building as the fuel is burnt off, because the thrust is essentially the same. Actually, it increases a little bit. But the weight of the rocket gets less and less as the fuel is burnt up. So acceleration increases, and you feel more and more pressure, and then at staging, it just drops back just like on a centrifuge. So it's a very nice feeling. This is the first picture taken in space. Remember, this was the simulation, so shows the simulation and reality is quite the same. Notice that my pencil, remember Space Pen that was developed for so many dollars? This is a Faber-Castell mechanical pencil that we glued some Velcro on, and that's what we are using. Notice also that the window is covered up, and we were under strict orders not to look at the Earth, especially the spacecraft rotates. When you look at the Earth, you get sick. Again, the Russians are very worried about sickness. I stole a glimpse once, and the commander immediately, but that was the only time he kind of raised his voice and said, cut it out, basically. Yeah. Let's see which way is forward. Oh, no, I'm sorry, this is forward, right? Okay, so this is my first glimpse of the Earth in totality from the living compartment. It's beautiful, it's blue, it's just like the sky. Now, for a completely different reason. But it's absolutely like the sky, and it's as big as the sky, at least from low Earth orbit. So this is me and Oleg, and you see now we took off our spacesuits already after checking the pressure integrity of the whole system. So now we're going to be spending 2 days and taking a little cat nap, wearing a wonderful space booties that are fur-lined booties, and those are the sleeping bags. 2 of us were sleeping in the living compartment, and the commander had to sleep in the return capsule, but by himself, so it's very comfortable. This is Fyodor showing off. He has been in space before on the space shuttle, never on the Soyuz, but you know what this is? It's apple juice. Yeah. It's apple juice, and he just squeezed it out of the box nicely and lets it float a little bit, and then he's going to drink it out of the air. Of course, otherwise it would make a horrible mess. You don't want it to touch anything. It's interesting. Water behaves very interestingly. It's almost like cream, cold cream. When you put it on your face, but it's a ball in the air, but if it gets on your face, then it gets flatter, and you can spread it like cream. And fluids behave very interestingly. People ask which was kind of the most amazing moment, and to me, if I had to pick one, it's the arrival to the space station. We arrived at local sunset. Yes, sunset. We just arrived at sunset. Of course, we needed to have light for the docking. That's a safer way to dock, but just at the moment of docking, the sun was going down, and the colors are incredible in space at the few seconds of sunset, and it was purples and reds, most unimaginable colors, and also very bright white. And this structure out of nowhere, you were going for 2 days, and everything is black, or of course the Earth is there, but just nearby where you are, there was nothing. And suddenly this structure kind of shows up. It's an improbable structure. It's very big. It's as long as 3 buses in a main axis, which you don't quite see. And then, of course, these solar arrays are enormous, hundreds of feet in length each way. And because of lack of gravity, you can build in this flimsy way. And it just looks very, very strange, very theatrical, I thought. Because of the sharp lighting and the strange colors. It was even stranger than this picture, but I think the picture takes. So we arrived at the space station with the crew there. Michael Lopez Alegria and Sonny Williams are the 2 Americans, and Misha Turin is the Russian. Okay, this is a sunrise. When the sun rises, it rises 16 times faster on the Earth. Everything is 16 times faster because it's 16 times around the Earth. It happens very quickly, and then when you can't bear even looking in that direction, it becomes just unbearably strong. It's interesting if you have 2 windows and you're looking at the sunset in just a moment of sunset, the sun came up. It's incredible white and light on one side, and it's pitch black on the other side. You know, unlike on Earth, when the sun comes up, it's light on both directions because of the atmosphere. But in the moment of sunrise, that side is still pitch black, and this side is brilliant white. This is on the sun is already there. This is a picture of our spacecraft. This is the spacecraft that we came up on. You can see the return capsule in the middle, the living compartment on the top. And a couple of seconds later, the colors change, you know, from brilliant red into gray, and then becomes dark. I guess it's sunset. You recognize this? Yeah, it's New York, Manhattan Island. It's very recognizable. You can see Central Park. I'm sure you could, you know, find all the other points. But of course, that's not how it looks. This is how it looks on a telephoto. This is how it looks. So this is what you see. And here, of course, you know, if you are familiar with geography, you say, oh, that's Long Island, and then Manhattan has to be there. But it's very, you know, if you don't know where you are, it's very difficult to recognize features. But it's all familiar. It's not that different than on an airliner. This is an impact crater in Quebec. I don't think it's on any map, but you can see it because of the snow. The snow just didn't melt, where it was a tiny bit higher. This is Seattle, where I live. Right? It's Giza, the pyramids. From space, again, it's telephoto, but you can see it. Niagara Falls. This is Bikini. It looks like a kind of a sea animal that is just floating in this giant ocean. And in fact, the perspective is strange, you know, because the bottom of the screen is further away, and probably I was upside down while I was taking the pictures. It's the very strange perspectives that you get. This is Easter Island. With the Mohawk sculptures are probably there someplace. This is Bahamas. Yeah, that's Dubai. From space, I've signed up for as many experiments as I could, and here I'm doing measurements of radiation. Those are dosimeters, thermoluminescent dosimeters, and which I had to. They are all velcroed. They are all velcroed, so that's why they are staying there. And of course, I have my foot hooked into some handrail, and to kind of keep my position. It's actually it's quite difficult to hold your position while you're working. It's quite difficult to work in space. This is the inside of the Russian segment. I look at, for example, this instrument. This is a mechanical manometer. That's a typical. We have one of those that you know, it's made of brass. It looks like it's from an old ship. I always thought that the spacecraft was like something. The living compartment was something out of Jules Verne. That these brass instruments, and that's a very important instrument. If we have a breach on the hull, this is the instrument that we would take from compartment to compartment after sealing the doors to see where the leak is, and whether to the rate of change, and we have a table whether to abandon the space station or not. So that gets quite serious. The red light that you don't want to see come on is over there. That indicates fire or depressurization or toxic atmosphere. Those are the three major calamities. This is part of the Russian segment with all the mementos left there by the various crews. This is me with water. Water is very important for us, not just for drinking, but that's the major source of oxygen. That it's a very effective way with using the solar energy and water. You get the oxygen and the hydrogen is vented overboard. The yogis always try to demonstrate levitation, and here I'm demonstrating levitation. This is Mike Turin's pants after 6 months in space. He's been donning his pants. And the replacement of the toilet. When the toilet is full. But the interesting part in this, to me, is this kitschy picture here. You know, who brought it there? I mean, it kind of gives it this lived-in look. It was hung right kind of next to the toilet, low. And remember my toilet, my exam here is the same one, and this is the KTO, the container of dry waste, and it's being taken to storage and will be deorbited in our living compartment when we were coming back. I started a library in space, and we see this Goethe and Heinlein. They gave me this jacket to the commander, said, okay, we're going to take a picture of you in this jacket. And where did this jacket come from? It's the investiture into the International Space Station Golf and Leisure Club. And signed by the secretary and the president of this club, and this was prepared up there and stamped appropriately. And this is Sunny Williams. She ran the Boston Marathon in space, if you remember, at the same time as the Boston Marathon was going on. And these are her numbers: 4 hours, 26.20 miles on the treadmill. I mean, it's an incredible performance. I was happy to be able to go from one end of the station to the other. And this is me going from one end to the other. A little bit of calisthenics, something I couldn't do on Earth. The change of command ceremony, very, very touching. Michael Lopez Alegria relinquished his command to the new commander, which is Fyodor Yorchikin. And notice the ship's bell on the upper right corner. Do you see that? That's a real ship's bell that the space station has. It follows naval traditions, and the bell was struck the appropriate number of times. And Sonny Williams was reading from the procedures, the naval manual of how to do the change of command. And this is our last press conference. Yeah, I just wanted to show you that this is the normal pose that people kind of take up in space. It's this kind of laid-back pose with your feet, and it's a very comfortable position to be in. When the other positions are not that stable, it turns out that you think that you can relax, but you are not made to relax. When some of your muscles are relaxing, other muscles become tense. So there doesn't seem to be any single position where all of your muscles are relaxing. That's kind of that's something I learned in weightlessness. So we are ready to go. We are putting on the undergarments and going back to Earth. There's this big divot. This is a divot that we made when the spacecraft impacts the Earth at 80 centimeter altitude, as measured by the gamma ray altimeter, driven by highly radioactive substances that make the bottom of the spacecraft very dangerous. Notice that there's nobody at the bottom of the spacecraft. They fire these retro rockets, and it kind of softens the impact a little bit. But we did make that big dent on the steps. And now the recovery people that are mostly MDs, they are rolling us in a way so that, remember, we are sitting kind of parallel to each other. So they're rolling us in a position so we are belly down. And so when we release the belts, then we can kind of crawl out on our bellies, which is kind of comfortable. That's me, ready to crawl out. This is the hatch that was opened up. And this is the MDs pulling you out from the spacecraft. For a couple of hours, you feel quite strange, and the people who have been up there for 6 months, they had quite a bit of difficulty for the first few hours. And this is, of course, Pavel Popovich, and this is Pavel Popovich came to to my welcome at the reception after the flight, and he is now the senior surviving cosmonaut because number 1, 2, and 3 passed away, and everybody was very impressed that the senior cosmonaut had some connection, and he was telling me, Charlie. He was very happy, and of course I had the proof. He couldn't have remembered, but I had the proof because of the postcard that we had met in the 60s. So charlesinspace.com is the website, and please come and visit. And thank you very much for your attention. So we are ready for a Q&A, or yeah, yes. Please. Oh, hitting the ground. It was very firm. It's 10 meters per second, so it's about 25 miles an hour, and you have those soft rockets, so it's not exactly like hitting a brick wall, but maybe a thin brick wall. But imagine that you are really very comfortable. You are in a completely a perfect seat liner, and you are supposed to relax. You're supposed to close your mouth, otherwise you're going to bite off your tongue, and relax and kind of try to fill out the seat liner. There's also one more advice, that you have to tighten your seat belts. We had 6 seat belts, 2 around the knees, 2 separate seat belts, 1 for each knee, and 4 other belts. And every time we had a jerk earlier, for example, every time a parachute opened, and a parachute opens, it opens in sequence, a very small one and a bigger one, and then a main parachute. But every time a parachute jerked, that was an opportunity to retighten the belts. You know, that kind of got you back into the seat. You tighten the belt, so there would be no rebound. And if you take all those precautions, you feel a substantial hit, but you don't feel bad afterwards. So, you know, you don't see stars, or you are not in pain, nothing gets broken. And that's what it's like. I was worried about it a little bit, and the commander gave me all these books to hold. He said, well, of course, they overloaded the truck a little bit, and he said, these are all the manuals, the emergency manuals, and we can't put them on the shelf because that's filled up, so you will have to hold it. And I said, how do I hold it? He said, put it on your belly and hold it like a baby. You know, and I say, wow, and I'm going to land with that, and you know, I'm worrying about landing, and he's putting extra stuff on me. Plus, I was carrying a little bit of contraband in my liner too. So, wow. But I guess he knows what he's talking about. So we had it wasn't a problem, even with the books on my belly. Now, when they turned us around, then as I was holding the books, they you know, it was protected from this acceleration. But now we were on the ground, and they rolled us in the right position. During the rolling, all the books fell out. But of course, at that time, it wasn't important. It almost hit Michael at the other end of the spacecraft. It was quite normal because we were on very strict schedule, and the schedule was on a computer, and there was this red line that was kind of moving through the schedule, and it was always telling us what we are supposed to do and you know, what's the next item in our schedule. So we were very regimented and very regular in a sense. We all slept at the same time, woke up at the same time, you know, ate at the same time. So it was very, very regular. When you look outside, we never knew where we were, for example. So we certainly didn't rely on on the view to tell us whether it was day or night. 8 hours. Yeah, we got 8 hours. Of course, toward the end, we kind of cut it short because for complicated reasons, you know, I had things to do that could only be done, you know, see certain places on Earth that we weren't above except above during local day except during our night. Okay, so I woke up at 4 a.m., say our time. By the way, I had a great argument with them about time. It's really, what I think is stupid, is the station is running on Zulu time, which actually makes sense, okay? That's cool. Except, what people don't know, that it's Zulu time, but you wake up at 6 p.m. and you go to bed at 4 a.m. or something like that. Completely confusing. So that means that at lunch, the day changes. Think about that. So you're on Friday's schedule, and suddenly it's Saturday. And so I told them, look, you know, your data is wrong because there's no such thing as day Zulu. There's such as hour Zulu. That's easy to write down. But when you write down the day, there's complete ambiguity whether it is the day of the schedule or it's the day of Greenwich, which can be different in our... So why can't you just say that if that's the schedule, fine. Say that we are in a local time where people wake up. I mean, on the Earth, there was one place, one time zone, when people woke up at the same time as we were waking up and going to bed at the same time as they were going to bed. And if I had thought of that place and say that that's our local time, I could test easily of, for example, if I wanted to call my friends in California, whether it's too early or too late, what time is it in California? So, anyway, but they said, we can't do that. First of all, it doesn't make sense. Of course it does. But secondly, they can't change the software. Yeah. Oh, yes, sorry. You do the choosing.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm trying to understand a little bit more of how your sleep cycles. In other words, what quality of sleep did you get? How did the sleep change from the start of the trip, the end of the trip, and then the few weeks after? Can you talk about that?
During the trip, it's very simple. It was really 8 hours. It was very regular, very deep sleep, excellent experience. Obviously, when we launched from Kazakhstan and we had a long day, and then we arrived in this different time zone, it's exactly like jet lag. It's not that different than arriving in this unknown time zone, except that unknown time zone is not named, so I can't tell you. You know, it's like going to Japan. It was either going to Japan or going to California or somewhere in between. I don't know. But so we had that much jet lag, and it's absolutely right that on the first day on the space station. Now, one more interesting thing about the time. If you go on board of the Soyuz, then the time changes exactly to Moscow statute time. So the first thing you do in the Soyuz is it's Moscow statute time. At least it's a time I understand.
Interesting. Kath.
Yes, I had I thought it was interesting. How does one simulate running the Boston Marathon out in space?
Great question. Yeah, and people asked me, and I described it in my blog, and then NASA cut it out because they said it was too personal. But Sonny showed me the people have to exercise in space, otherwise they lose muscle mass at 2% a month. So it's very, it's not a benign environment at all. So they have to have exercise. So they have really good exercise machines. The way that works is it's a treadmill. It's a treadmill made of titanium belt and all that stuff. But you are wearing a harness. It's a 4-point harness, connects at your shoulder and your hips.
Okay.
And then bungee cords are pulling you with the force that is basically gravity. So you feel like you
feel like you're on Earth?
You feel like on Earth, basically. I mean, you work as hard on Earth, and then the belt gives the resistance. So it's exactly like an exercise machine. The difference is, of course, that instead of the weight being distributed all over your body, it's distributed to your shoulder and the hip. And you can imagine that doing a marathon, I mean, she had serious bruising on those 4 spots. And I mean, it makes it much more of a performance, apart from just the physical exertion, which is equal, but the pain that you have to suffer is, I think it's remarkable. Thanks for making that clear.
Great.
Thank you.
2 more questions. One over here, please.
Are there any aspects of the trip that you wish the training had prepared you for?
I criticize the way the work is organized on the space station. I think it's pretty haphazard. Things don't have Velcro on it. We spent a lot of time just putting Velcro on things on the station, which is very difficult. You know, it takes 5 minutes. Get the tape, get the scissors, secure the scissors, you cut it, take the backing off, making sure that it's in the right piece of garbage. You open the garbage, you have to protect what's inside already. You put this extra garbage in it. You have to reseal the garbage. You have to secure the garbage bag, and so on. Everything is so complicated. And why can't that be done? You know, as you saw, it's pretty haphazard. I mean, it's a big mess, frankly.
Terrific. Last question here.
I was interested in the gender dynamics in space. I noticed there was 1 female aboard. How was, I'm assuming you all discussed it to some extent. How did that impact the community in space?
Well, it was wonderful to fly with Sunny, and it was also great that I trained with her at Star City. So when I said goodbye in November, I said, well, see you in space. Because she went up on the shuttle then, and then I came up on the Soyuz. So you know, people knew each other, and she's a Navy helicopter pilot. So I think that she's very well equipped to handle the social situation of a woman surrounded by a lot of men in a tight living space. I don't think it was an issue at all. It's the equipment there's no gender-specific equipment. For example, there's no need for it, and it didn't seem to be an issue at all.
Discuss it. Did she mention anything about hanging out with the guys, or is guy, girl even part of the reality in that context?
Well, I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was. I think there was a lot of normal Navy banter that was going on. I think it was a very, very positive environment for everybody.
Thank you.
Charles, one question from me. Did you were able to bring any embargoed computers to space?
The embargo is long ago.
No. But I mean, computers up with you.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
No, I could not bring computers up. In fact, they are really worried about software. Even though the computer what I got to bring a hard disk that was plugged into one of the Russian laptops.
I see.
So which was prepared by Energia, so they knew exactly what was on that disk.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well.
No. Sorry. The commander told me that hey, why don't you just take some mementos, and it was the spoon and the fork. There's a wonderful kit that I have. I mean, a kit that is Velcroed, and it has the right Russian writing on it, and has the spoon and the fork. So that was the spoon and the fork were in here. Yeah.
Well, let's close this evening, but Charles, thank you so much for a wonderful.
Thanks very much for the hospitality. Thank you.
And on behalf of all of us here, we have a couple of small gifts, a copy of our core book, which I know that means so much for you from an artifact.
Yes, this is a wonderful book. I recommend to everyone, and I would have bought it if you hadn't.
How many cases would you like? And another small gift you can look at later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Hope you come back again very soon.
Thank you.
I'm sure Charles will be around if anyone has a few questions here. Thank you much. Congratulations so much.